Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this video where we're looking at the Parawing Jibe, but unlike other Parawing Jibe videos you may have watched, this video isn't about a single standard jibe. Of course we are all Parawing in for that perfect swell run, but at the beginning and end of every swell run there's usually a jibe, and especially on the inside where waves may be breaking or it's shallow, you want that jibe to be a success. We are going to look at 3 different jibes and talk about how these 3 jibes are an essential part of your skill set in terms of selecting the right jibe for the right conditions to guarantee success. The 3 jibes we're going to look at are the ordinary jibe, the Heineken Jibe and the stash jibe. If, like me, you're someone who runs laps rather than doing a big upwind run and then a single downwind run, and the laps you run can be relatively short, then having these 3 jibes in your skill set will dramatically increase your success running laps in waves or swell. The jibe you pick will depend on both wind state and sea state, and matching the right jibe to the right conditions can very much reduce your falls or fails. So initially let's start and define what each jibe looks like. Normal jibe. Heineken jibe. Stash jibe. The premise here is that each of these jibes serves a particular condition best. The normal jibe, although the first jibe you learn, can actually be the trickiest one to get right. This is especially true in light wind conditions. In general, the normal jibe is least successful in very light wind conditions. The reason for this is the Parawing needs to fly all through the transition, and in a jibe you fly towards the Parawing, you fly downwind towards it. In light winds, your board will very often be travelling faster than the Parawing. This means that your lines go slack, and either the Parawing doesn't turn at all because you lose steering because your lines have gone slack, or you foil underneath it and it drops straight on your head and you become gift wrapped by your Parawing. In very strong winds or power conditions, it becomes much more reliable and easier, as the chances of either slack lines or going downwind faster than the wind itself become minimal. So let's look at the technique for the normal jibe. The technique varies in lighter winds versus stronger winds. Stronger winds is simpler, so we'll look at that first. The first thing I want to point out here is my hand position. It's right at the front of the bar. The Parawing is basically depowered because the wind is very strong. In a light wind jibe, I would not be able to complete the jibe with my hand in this position, so that's one thing to take note of. That will be different on the light wind version. The way steering works for Parawing is we twist the bar in order to steer. In a jibe, the twist of the bar matches the angle of the board to the wind. So at the start of the jibe, I'm sailing across the wind, and so my bar is horizontal. As I turn downwind, the bar will be twisted until the red front of the bar is pointing upwards when I'm heading straight downwind, and then as I go through the eye of the wind, it will continue to twist back to horizontal until I'm once again sailing across the wind. The bar does lead the board very slightly, but in general, if your bar twists in time with your board, then the jibe should, in most instances, be successful. In this instance, the bar actually lagged the board, and this again is strong winds making the whole thing non-critical. In strong winds, there is little chance of the lines going slack or flying downwind faster than the board. As a result, normal jibes in strong winds are generally very easy, so long as you twist your bar in time with your board angle change. Okay, let's look at what changes in lighter winds. First, in light winds, I will deliberately slow down my board speed to a speed where I know I have enough to get round the jibe, but I'm not going to fire myself in at maximum speed just to make it round with room to spare. This is very different to light wind jibes with an inflatable wing, where you maximise board speed on the way in to get the most glide. Doing this in light winds with the Parawing will guarantee the lines go slack when you go downwind, and you'll probably end up gift wrapped in your Parawing. Let's quickly look at this full speed so you can see how it looks slightly different. I will also place a side by side so you can see how the Parawing is positioned differently, much lower to the water compared to the strong wind jibe. The twist of the bar is exactly the same in light winds, but the positioning of the hands changes. Specifically, we were using our back hand to pull on the back lines of the Parawing to make it fly down and in front of us. This is to keep the Parawing in the power zone. Up high above our heads, the Parawing has the least power. Horizontally out in front of us, like a parachute pulling us downwind, it has the most power. And this is what we want to stop our lines from going slack. So in a light wind jibe, we twist the bar the same, but you also pull on the back of the bar to bring the Parawing down into the power zone. You can of course bring the Parawing down into the power zone in a strong wind jibe as well, as shown in this clip, and it just gives you more speed through the jibe. Now let's move on to the Heineken Jibe. This has become one of my favourite jibes because it is extremely reliable once you master the technique. This can be used in both strong and light winds, and I do use it in both. Unlike the normal jibe, the technique remains the same in strong or light winds, and there is much less opportunity for slack lines or getting gift wrapped. You can also carry more speed into your light wind jibes with this technique because you are not going to fly under the Parawing in this jibe, so it actually works better for light wind jibes than the normal jibe. The Heineken Jibe is basically a down loop of the Parawing into the opposite direction. Some people like to whip the wing around. I prefer to just fly it relatively gently through the whole manoeuvre. There is no right or wrong way, it's personal preference. This jibe does require that your front hand be palm down on the bar, and you do need to have quite good flexibility in your arm and wrist to twist the bar all the way through so the Parawing flies completely through the loop. I have a little less flexibility and twist in my left arm compared to my right arm, so I do find these a little harder when sailing with my left arm as the front arm performing the loop. I'll show you that here so you can see how with my left arm I struggle to get the bar pointing skywards to complete the loop, and instead I switch hands to complete the loop. One way to combat this lack of flexibility is to do the loop with the back hand instead, which you can see here and I'll explain later. But first we'll look at the normal Heineken with the front hand palm down initiating the down loop. We initiate our turn and fly the Parawing up to gain a little height for our down loop. The timing of the down loop is that it needs to be done before we are foiling downwind. Ideally we want some power and tension still in the lines so that the down loop happens quickly and under power. We initiate this by twisting the bar 180 degrees in the direction we want the Parawing to down loop, in this example in a clockwise direction. We foil through the downwind leg of the jibe while the Parawing is at the bottom of the loop, which avoids us flying under the Parawing and gift wrapping. It also doesn't matter at this point if the lines go slightly slack, as the Parawing is effectively in a benign position at the bottom of the loop. As we continue to foil our turn, we need to twist the bar further so it's pointing upwards to fly the Parawing up as it regains power and we come across the wind. This is the bit where some good flexibility in your arm and wrist is required. You can switch hands at this point to your new front arm to fly the Parawing upwards rather than trying to twist your arm further. If you go for the full arm twist, then you switch hands once the Parawing has flown upwards onto the new tack. I said I'd return to a slightly different way of doing it. This is down looping with your new front hand but with it palm up. So in this version we change to our new hand before we do the down loop, but we place it on the bar palm up. We then down loop the Parawing just like we would with our other hand by rotating through 180 degrees. This avoids the flexibility issues, but does require a bit more finesse and skill to pull this version off than the palm down version. Last, let's look at the stash jibe. This jibe is really useful in conditions where you have swell that can assist your jibe, especially in light wind conditions where we can neutralise the Parawing, perform our jibe on the swell and then redeploy the Parawing on the new tack. This does require a Parawing with a good reliable redeploy like the Ozone Power Pack. It avoids slack lines, steering problems or gift wrapping, which is what makes it very good in light winds. You can do this jibe at full foiling speed because the Parawing is stowed for the jibe, which maximises our jibe exit speed, providing we get a nice sharp redeploy. The stash jibe is a more advanced jibe because it requires that you can stash and redeploy your Parawing, so it's not something you'll be able to master until you have mastered the stash and redeploy just surfing on some swell. Once you can do it though, it is a really good light wind option and is equally effective in strong winds as well. Let's look at this in slow motion and just talk through it. You can do this jibe without a swell bump to assist, but it's better to use a bump to carry your speed while the Parawing is stowed. The entry to the jibe is basically the same entry you would take to engage onto a swell bump and stow the Parawing in order to surf it. In this video it's a wind blown swell bump, so we are turning downwind and picking up some drive and lift from the bump. As soon as we enter onto the bump, we are stashing the Parawing and just keeping the leading edge in our stash hand. We then continue the turn on the bump until we are foiling on the opposite tack. Once we are on the opposite tack, we can redeploy the Parawing. This timing is important. We do not want to redeploy the Parawing while heading straight downwind. We must ensure we turn completely through onto our new tack before we redeploy. Otherwise, the redeploy will fail due to a lack of wind. This jibe is very effective in light winds if you have bumps to assist, because the foiling part of the jibe where we are transitioning the Parawing is still being driven by the swell bump, so we lose no speed due to the Parawing being transitioned. I hope this discussion of jibe techniques has been useful and has encouraged you not to be over reliant on the standard jibe, because although that jibe is not difficult to do, it has very distinct disadvantages in light winds, and this is where the other two jibes can become very useful in ensuring that you make it through jibes while staying on foil. That's it for this video. I'll see you on the next video.